Welcome to the High Vibration Reset, the podcast for women ready to step into their next level of success without burnout, overthinking, or ever feeling undervalued. I'm Ciara Conlon, your host, and I've spent the past 18 years helping ambitious women to shift their mindset, their energy, and lead with more confidence. So welcome to episode 3 of the podcast with Olivia Farrelly. Now, Olivia is a trauma-informed, alcohol-free coach and mentor. She also has an MSc in health psychology, and she is the host of the No More Booze podcast, an award-winning podcast that is creating space for Ireland's sober curious. Now, Olivia has spent over 20 years in program delivery, but she's now using her expertise to help hundreds of people remove alcohol from their lives. And her goal is to destigmatise overdrinking and inspire others to experience the freedom, joy, and vitality that an alcohol-free life unlocks. So in this episode, I chatted to Olivia about how alcohol lowers our vibration and how it can negatively impact our energy and emotional state, how it contributes to things like anxiety, feelings of shame, guilt, and just an overall low vibration. So Olivia shared her personal experience, and when you hear her talk, you will be emptying those bottles of wine down the sink because Olivia is a high vibration individual and really a testament to what living alcohol free can do for you. So if you are sober curious, or if you just want to hear more about how we can live in high vibration, I know you're going to enjoy this episode. But as always, let us know what you thought in the comments. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please make sure you're following. We don't want you to miss any episodes. So let's dive into the episode, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello, and welcome to the High Vibration Reset. And welcome to Olivia Farrelly.
Hooray!
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast, Olivia. I am really looking forward to this conversation. And I know a few people I know are also looking forward to this conversation. So for those of you who don't know Olivia, Olivia is an alcohol-free coach and mentor, and she's the host of No More Booze podcast. So you may have heard her before. But Olivia, I have lots of questions for you that I think lots of people are going to benefit from. But if you wouldn't mind starting off with just tell us a little bit more about who you are and maybe your own relationship with alcohol and how you started to do what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ciara. Podcasts are my life. I love them. I'd say I listen to 10 a day. But so I'm Olivia. I'm 44. I'm married. I have 2 small children. Well, they're 10 and 8. I suppose in terms of my relationship with alcohol, I gave it up almost 7 years ago. So in the 4th of July 2018, I began drinking as a teenager like everybody else. I went to university. I drank like everybody else. I did a master's. Actually, I didn't drink that much when I was doing my master's. I traveled around the world. So I suppose when I look back, I drank mildly at some stages of my life, heavily at others, and not at all at others. So I had a very typical relationship with alcohol in terms of when I looked at other people around me, but it was woven into so many aspects of my life. It definitely provided part of my identity. So if we look at celebrations, nights out, connections, everywhere I went, almost everywhere I went, there was alcohol involved. Now, I suppose in the run up to me giving it up, we were never home drinkers, me and my husband Gary. We didn't really drink at home. We might share a bottle of wine, but it wasn't a nightly thing, I suppose, that I would have poured a glass of wine. It was more to do with connection. So I suppose when I had kids, and I know this from working with a lot of clients as well, when they have kids, your life drastically changes. So what you were able for beforehand, you're not really able for afterwards. So we were getting a lot less sleep. We were more sleep deprived. There was less time for us. So when I'd go out, maybe once a month, I suppose at 35, 36, I'd drink and I'd feel the effects for 5-6 days, right? So in terms of my motivation, my consistency, whereas I was able to stay in bed, on a Sunday and really recover from a hangover when I had kids, I wasn't able to do that. So a series of events. Listen, 2018 was kind of like a desert compared to what it's like now in terms of alcohol-free, sober curiosity, all these kind of buzzwords. So a lot has changed since then. So when I became sober curious, I didn't know I was sober curious. I didn't consciously go into sober curiosity. I just knew that I couldn't feel like I was feeling. So there was a number of events. I won't bore anybody. I'm sure if you're listening to this and you drink, that sometimes you drink too much and you feel really bad as a result. So there was a few of those. And then one day, enough was enough. I was sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And my whys became too big. I wrote a list of them, 6 of them, but something big happened. As in, there was a click. There was a resolve within me, and I knew I'd never drink again because I couldn't keep feeling the way I was feeling. Yeah. I wasn't at my best. I was stuck. I know all this now because I do so much self-reflection, but not knowing then, I didn't know. It was the thing that was keeping me stuck. It was nothing else,
And not only do you know it now, but I suppose you've seen from working with so many people, the exact same pattern happen again and again.
Absolutely. And when they come to me, I can see them. I can see them in me. I can see me in them, that kind of small, stagnant, I don't know if I can do it. And, what will my life be like? What will my identity be? How will people accept me? There's absolutely very real fears, and real fears, especially because we live in this country where our identity internationally, but also among ourselves, is seen as really gorgeous, jovial, great crack, and the alcohol loosens us up. Absolutely. Yeah. But I suppose when is a time that you have to act in the fullness of who you are and say, it's not actually going that well for me. So, okay, so I have low level anxiety. My mood is very inconsistent. I'm very inconsistent. I've lack of motivation. I might be high performance, but I might have a silent depletion, so it's all these things that people need to ask themselves. And I suppose having a little bit of faith, having that, faith and believing in other people that they say, when people say giving up alcohol is the best thing that will ever happen, believe them, put your trust in them, because I'm approaching 80 guests on my podcast now, some world-renowned coaches, people from all walks of life, and every single one of them say the exact same thing.
Nobody regrets it.
Nobody, absolutely nobody.
Yeah. And there might be a phase between, solidifying the new habits, of course, where it might be a bit tough, but ultimately it's the best thing that anybody ever does. It's what you're hearing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling as well. So, and I suppose what happened for me is that I went back to university. I had this incredible passion for it. I was like, people need to know this. Went back to UL, did a course down there, then retrained as a coach, launched the podcast. And I know I'm not alone. And I suppose that's the greatest thing about being a human being. We think we're alone, but when we come into community community and we start speaking up about something, we know that we're not alone. It's so powerful that our experience is universal, that humans generally go through the same levels of development. So like, okay, so alcohol could have had lots of benefits when we were in our 20s and very few costs, but then the scales begins to turn, so there's far more costs than there is actually benefits. And it's realizing that point at your life where you go, okay, it's costing too much. It's taking more than it's giving.
Yeah. And it's taking responsibility for that.
That's it.
It's important.
Adulting.
But tell me, you use the term, Olivia, grey area drinking. So what exactly does that mean?
Yeah. So I suppose when I talk about it, it's from my own perspective. So when I look at it, I was a grey area drinker. I personally never felt physically dependent on alcohol, so I never felt the need to get up and that my physiology needed that drink. So I could easily have none. But when I had one, it was kind of an all or nothing type scenario. So if we look at grey area drinking, it's somewhere between kind of the now and again drinker, the person who can have half a glass of Prosecco and carry on living their lives. And then the person who's, I suppose, what we typically know and see as rock bottom drinking. And then maybe somewhere in the middle, it's somebody who can, that they might make rules around their drinking. They can rarely have just one. It doesn't look like there's a problem on the outside, but they're kind of questioning it on the inside. There's a lot of negative things like anxiety, regret, guilt, shame, all those low vibration feelings.
Yeah. And what do you think is the normal? Like, is there a normal type of drinker in Irish women, normal professional women? Is there a certain type that you see more than others, or is it just a range of?
Well, it's a range of, but I suppose what people come to me because they resonate with what I'm saying and what I've said. So it's typically somebody who came of age in the 80s or 90s, where there was that push to drink more. There was more economic freedom. People had their own money. They were able to, it was a bit of a ledette culture that was kind of by osmosis came from the UK over to here, that kind of thing of we can keep up with the boys, and so they, I suppose, came of age drinking the alco pops and then the mommy wine culture, the pink my drink phenomenon. And they're literally drinking in similar ways to what they did in their teens and their 20s, but physiologically our body can't keep up with it. Right. So, there's a lot of changes that happen. And certainly, I suppose women in perimenopause and menopause are coming to me with sleep disturbances, low level anxiety, like that kind of dullness. So they're just not thriving. Now, they're not at rock bottom. They're at, one of my favorite clients said to me, they're at rock middle. So it's not rock bottom. We're in the rock middle, functioning really well, but just not getting the most out of life,
Right. So as you know, this podcast is about living in high vibration. And that is kind of that our thoughts, our emotions, and our habits and actions are aligned with a positive forward focus, let's say. So, when we're in high vibration, we can have a positive impact on our own lives as well as the lives of those around us. So what is the biggest negative impact of alcohol on that? So how does alcohol disrupt coherence or high vibration?
Yeah. So if you look at how we feel with a hangover, right? Typically, and this is across the board, guilt, shame, regret. If you have a tendency to black out, then there's a lot of self-flagellation, self-loathing, right? There, if we think of an emotional scale, they're at the very bottom. Things like lethargy, right? You don't care. You don't care about going to the gym. You don't care about letting your friends down. It's that very low vibration. So alcohol, and we all know, I'd say every single person has said this in their lives. Alcohol is a depressant, right? So it makes us feel low. It depresses our central nervous system. We're not light. We're not joyful generally. So you can only think about the bad things that you did. There may be low level anxiety, low level mood. You mightn't be very stable. You mightn't be very regulated. And then it affects our prefrontal cortex. So we don't make the best decisions when we're under the influence, right? So, and I had a doctor on my own podcast a couple of months ago, and she said that, levels of cortisol are still very high in our system, even a week after a drink,
Oh, wow.
So it affects so much that we don't know about, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much research coming out now. Like, I think you need to be your head needs to be in the sand if you're trying to ignore it, because it kind of is everywhere, all the research there. But if conversely, then you take it out, so you've nothing dragging you down. So every morning you wake up, it's clarity, now within reason, of course, right? But clarity, joy, consistency, passion, motivation, enthusiasm, optimism. So you can make better choices because you're consistent. So it's not this, hamster wheel of, am I here again? And then you're like, you have all these goals on a Monday, but they're gone by Friday because maybe you had a couple of glasses of wine on the Thursday night, the Friday night, the Saturday night. Who wants to live their life? Meh. You don't want to be grand. You want to be great.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Well, what about just one glass every now and again? Does that still disrupt that flow?
Yeah, just based on even what I said a minute ago, it would still, well, I have found anyway, it would still, impede our thoughts. So it blocks our creativity, but also if we're talking about all or nothing, gray area, middle lane drinkers, one is never enough, So one tends to lead into 2, 3, 4 because of the buzz and the feeling that it evokes within us.
And have you seen, Olivia, connection with alcohol and burnout? I mean, is that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you look at alcohol and its effect on our sleep, right? So obviously sleep is incredibly important for our mental health, for our physical health. And, when we drink too much, and I know this has been well covered, and especially at the age of maybe women in midlife, if you're choosing to, I think it was Dr. Mary Claire Haver said this, if you're choosing to have a drink, you're choosing not to sleep. So alcohol, then, we've a series of mini awakenings during the night when we have alcohol in our system as it's trying to leave our system. And then, we don't get into that REM, that powerful sleep. So, it doesn't have that restorative effect. And we all know this. You wake up and you think you've had 8 hours sleep, but you're never going at full pace like you would if you weren't drinking,
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I gave up alcohol, and it was, my reasoning at the time was to take back the control. Yeah. So at the time, it wasn't about, I didn't have a problem with drinking. I was an habitual drinker.
Yes.
And obviously all of the research that I had done about habits and good habits and bad habits, and it was a lot of what you are describing, that I'd have a drink, I'd regret it, I'd, feel low, dull. And so for me, it was about, I want to take control of this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be having a drink just because my husband's having a drink or just because it's Friday night or whatever, all of this.
Yeah.
But what I started to realize while I was doing this was that it was a lot about my mind. So it was the beliefs that I had, so we say it helps us relax. I presume just what you've said about the sleep, it's not helping us relax at all.
Yeah.
But it is numbing our emotions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of people that I work with have very, very stressful jobs. So they, are, I don't want to say misguided, but they have a belief system that maintains that if we have a drink, that it will basically calm us and calm our nervous system. And it does. And, you have a glass of wine and the shoulder drop happens, but we all know that it just temporarily numbs it and it comes back even stronger the next day. So what we put off today, we get double tomorrow, So it's a huge amount about relearning how to feel, how to cope, how to, you know, sit with big emotions. And I suppose what I've learned from my own experience as a human on earth, right, is that when we have these massive feelings, overwhelm, underwhelm, disappointment, rage, guilt, whatever it is, how we can't sit with them. We weren't taught how to cope as kids, you know. So what do? We have a cigarette, we eat the bit out, we drink
Pick
our
up the
heads off,
phone.
pick up the phone. And I even noticed that myself, you know. And if, you know, if I have an overwhelming emotion or feeling, I'll grab the phone and then I'll be like, no, 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 put the phone away, you know. So it's all
Girl.
about developing self-awareness, becoming a
Yeah.
detective in your own life, just looking at what are, you know, what is my belief system? Okay, do I think that sober people are dull or boring? Have I bought into that glamorizing, romanticizing alcohol myth? You know,
Yes.
I'm not anti-booze, Ciara. I'm not. A lot of people around me drink. My husband drinks. I have no judgment on that. What I'm saying is I can't drink right now at this phase of my life. I can't say I didn't enjoy drinking, because I did. That would be a lie, right? But it was knowing when it was time to stop. Now, it was probably time to stop 10 years before I stopped, you know, but better late than never. And it's all for me. I'm definitely a spiritual seeker. It's very much what is my path, and it was divine timing for me.
Fabulous. That sounds, yeah, you were lucky that you sought it out at the time that you did. It's interesting though as well that, you know, all of these kind of emotion numbing habits that we have, did you see that when you moved from alcohol that you know, sought out something else? Did you start shopping or eating or?
Sorry, I love all of those things. I shop and eat to my heart's content. No, do you know what? So I notice certain things about myself, right?
Yeah.
So, and I notice these patterns in other people. So I'm highly sensitive, right? I spent my entire life being highly sensitive and possibly an empath, right? Yes, an empath, right?
Yeah.
So highly sensitive and maybe a bit of ADHD. We haven't done the test yet, right? So a very overactive mind, a very mind that's prone to obsessing about things. I don't think, and I've talked to my therapist about this a lot, right? So I don't think I've an addictive personality. I've an obsessive one. So I hyper focus on things and then I forget about them, right? But what happens is, so when I gave up, it was a lovely time in my life. You know, I'm a real self-help queen. I resort to podcasts, books. That's always been my modus operandi from I was about 17 or 18. So I loved kind of reading and learning. Absolutely. But what I went hell for leather into exercise. So that gave me a lot of clarity, right? I did a lot of HIIT stuff. I went hell for leather as well into cleaning my own gut health. So repairing my gut, did a lot of stuff, work on that. And I was able then to access a lovely bit of intuition, did a bit of meditation, still do it, you know, all those gorgeous affirmation works. And as well, you know, a few CBT tools like catch it, challenge it, change it. When I catch myself, let's say, catastrophizing something, right, and the fear sets in, I have a few little affirmations that I say. It's like, no, no, no. If not this, there's better things out there. And my favorite one at the minute is, I get what I am. Right. So it's a very conscious. So I want to be bliss. I want to be content. I want to have peace. I want to have love, all of these gorgeous things. And when you know, I'm happiest when I'm feeling like that, but also I'm in control of my feelings. So I set the tone for how I feel. So if I'm not feeling great, if I've a low vibe in the morning, so I'll listen to music, I'll do a beautiful meditation, I'll move my body. So I'll move that emotion out of my body, do a lot of that kind of, you know, breath work and moving things out. And, you know, it's funny, like our body always remembers. I tasted something the other day and it brought me right back to 1996 because it was a taco fry. So, and it was literally like, I used to eat these like 25 years ago, right? Or maybe more. My maths always gets me into trouble. But like the body remembers. So we need to outmaneuver our own physiology and our own memory as well. So it's a huge journey of, I suppose, biological, psychological, and social transformation. We have to attack it from a lot of different angles. That seems like very tough work, but it just happens incrementally. It's the greatest, this giving up of alcohol is the greatest personal development journey anyone will ever go on.
So this is it, you know, and you've said a lot of things there that I want to come back to, habit replacement. But I think this is the thing. It's that most people with their relationship with alcohol, now that might be a sweeping statement, but you know, a lot of the people that we come across that don't like their drinking habits, it's not that they have an alcohol problem.
Mm.
It's that they're using alcohol for a reason, to soothe themselves, to hide their emotion, to not deal with what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Or it's to connect with somebody, to connect with themselves, an older part of themselves, a wilder, more carefree version of themselves that they might have lost along the way. But
Yeah.
it's a stress relief as well. So a huge amount of the women, and it's generally women, I've 4 men that I've worked with, and hundreds of women now at this stage, but they do it for stress relief. So they have, the mental load is intense, and they might have outrageously stressful jobs with lots of lots of responsibility, and they come home, and the easiest way to stop thinking about, I suppose, stop that overthinking, the overthinking mind, is the quick glass of red wine or white wine or whatever is your drink, and that's it.
So it's the quick fix.
It's the quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is misplaced in terms of, as you said, it is a short-term fix that creates larger problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in that situation, Olivia, you know, what we're talking about here then is that, you know, it's masking changes, or, you know, there are things that need to be healed, faced, dealt with in order to get through to the other side. Because is it fair to say that if you just stop drinking, you're not going to be magically better? There's work to be done between.
Yeah, there's always work, Ciara. There's always work. Nothing comes fast or easy, does it? And I always say this, like the practice of alcohol-free living, you have to practice it. It's best understood through its practice. And I won't fix anybody. We'll give people the tools to fix themselves, but it can't be done onto you. You have to do it. So I suppose taking out alcohol is one thing, but adding in all the other things. So the things that keep us vibrant, vital, connected, regulated. Emotional regulation is a massive part of this. So, you know, when a trigger comes our way, okay, so what do we do? You know, do we go from 0 to 100, or do we create that space between our stimulus and our response? And that's probably one of the greatest lessons as well. And like there's so many practices like meditation and breath work and, you know, our food, what we're eating, what we're consuming, what makes us feel happy, that these in conjunction with removing the alcohol will be the main body of the work.
And for me, initially, when I gave up, I started to drink kombucha.
Yeah.
So if my husband was having a drink, I had a nice kombucha. So I felt like I was still having something, and I wasn't drinking water all the time. Now I do drink water all the time, and I'm happy with the water. But so do you recommend that there is a replacement? Because as I was saying, you know, when we give up a habit, generally the easiest and quickest way is to kind of hijack that neural pathway and replace it with something else.
Yeah.
So what's your...
Yes, I'm a
Or
big fan of kombucha as well. I had a lovely turmeric one today. That's what a lot of people I work with now. Obviously, they practically weren't invented when I gave up, right? So I didn't really. I'd have like a soft drink, but
Yeah.
there's so much available now. You can get like 0 0 gin and tonics. You can get whatever, so you feel kind of part of the connection. So you don't have to work on that identity shift immediately. So you can still be part of the gang feel, because as we all know, we're hardwired for that connection there. But yeah, so kombucha is really good. I, like yourself, I like a water, but there's, in terms of, the people that I've worked with and me myself, like I never drank beer, rarely drank beer when I was drinking alcohol, but sometimes I'll have one or a 0 0.
Yeah.
Often, if I'm at a wedding or something like that. But it's about, I suppose a lot of people say this, so we keep the ritual, we just change the ingredient,
Right.
and then we can, wean ourselves off that habit if we want to as well, and
Yeah.
replace it with water or kombucha or something.
So, that's interesting as well. You mentioned earlier as well about identity, because that definitely was one of the hardest things for me. Part of my identity is Guinness.
Okay.
I started drinking Guinness very young. And I, as you said earlier, that I was part of that culture where I can drink as much as the lads, pints of Guinness, and it was almost a challenge to be able to drink like the lads. I love rugby. So Guinness is very closely related to rugby in this country, So for me, that was probably the biggest challenge. Now I'm talking about giving up, but I'm actually not completely off alcohol. Just just to say that, if anyone thinks I saw her having a drink there. But for me, it was about taking back the control so that I could introduce it and say no when I needed to say no, or when I knew I was just doing it for the wrong reasons. There might always be wrong reasons, but anyway, back to the identity.
Mm.
So, that for me was the biggest challenge, because, and it still is a little bit, in terms of who you see yourself as with this drink beside you. Also, part of our identity as Irish people, as we mentioned. So how do we make that identity shift into not having a drink by our sides to be who we want to be?
Yeah, I suppose it's all about our whys, our goals. Okay, so we're intelligent, autonomous beings, right? All of us, without a doubt, every single person. So it's about, what do you want your life to look like, right? If you are okay with having one or two and it's not a problem, absolutely knock yourself out, go on ahead, right? It, for me and the vast majority of people that I work with, moderation can never happen. It's just because of our physiology. So one begets one begets one, and that is the nature of alcohol. I suppose we really need to say that it's a very addictive substance. We all know in Ireland, so it's all begara and begobs, and it's great crack, and but like there's a lot of devastation, and we
Great
all
crack
know
until
that
it's not. Yeah.
until it's not. Exactly. So it's a very, very personal, I suppose it's a very personal decision, and we can work around it just based on your goals. Like, what is your vision for yourself? What do you want to be? Like, what are all the values that you want to embody? And does drinking alcohol align or misalign with this? For me, it misaligned big time. I wasn't the person that I wanted to be when I drank alcohol. And for me, it has been safer to have none as to have one. So
Right.
I could
Yeah.
never trust myself to have just one, because I was the big ups, woohoo, let's go, when I had one, and one was never enough for little old me. But again, it's a personal decision. And I suppose it's all this journey of navigating through what you want your life to look like. I know mine is 8 trillion times better without it,
Yeah.
than I suppose the aftermath of it.
So it is about getting that vision of the future self.
Absolutely.
So who
Plus,
do I want to be? What does she behave like? What does she look like? Is she, getting out of bed at 9 o'clock with a terrible head on her? Or is she bouncing out of the bed at 6 a.m., doing her yoga, meditating, and changing people's lives as you and I are?
I'm an awful dose in the morning. Oh my God. I'm so positive. It's ridiculous. I even make myself annoyed. But if you look at it as well, right? So there will be a gap, right? You give up alcohol and there'll be a gap between drinking you and sober you. Okay. So like, it would be remiss to say that it doesn't loosen us all up and it invites crack, right? Okay, to a certain extent. So you have this version of yourself. You then need to become that version of yourself that you want to be. So for me, anyway, if I go to a hen or if I go to a wedding, I'm going to be dancing. I'm going to be a lot more outrageous than I generally am, and I try and treat it like a game. I'm like, how much fun can I have here now? And nobody's going to remember little old sober me going around the place, So that's how I choose to be, and I'm far more confident than I ever was because I know I do everything from the truest version of myself. I'm sober at everything. I have nerves, I feel it, but I know I've gone through so many milestones that I'm okay with it. I've done the weddings, I've done the hens, I've done the public speaking, I've done whatever I've done, and I haven't had to have a little shot beforehand.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's it as well, isn't it? It's the realization. And I've had friends say this to me, like on a night, maybe they're not drinking for a reason, maybe they've given up, but it's like, I feel the giddiness and excitement and I haven't had a drink.
Yeah.
So we kind of associate that nice, exciting feeling with alcohol, but it's actually self-created.
Absolutely.
If we choose it. So our mindset can create that state. As you say, you can go to a hen, you can go to a wedding, and you choose to be in great form. I choose this. So it's a lot to do with mindset.
Yeah. All of it is to do with mindset. And, I watch people at the beginning, and I always say this, like it's like people are at the bottom of a set of steps, right? And they're stuck in a bit of mud and they don't know how they're going to keep going to the top of it. But when you get there, you'll have this beautiful peripheral vision and you'll be lighter, more confident, braver, all of these gorgeous things. They just cannot see how that will happen. But it's about holding faith. And again, and there's a lot of techniques and tools and strategies that we can use. But once you get a milestone, so once you get your first wedding over you, your first bank holiday weekend, your first holiday, you then have the experience of it, right? So the experience of it, oh yeah, I did that last year and it was actually grand. And I'll often get texts from people saying, Olivia, I'm at that 50th that I said I was going to. And do you remember I was saying I was so nervous? Well, it was actually grand because once I set the tone for refusing the first drink, nobody cares. And that's the thing people need to remember. They're too busy worrying about themselves to even care what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's getting over that first, as you say, first anything.
Yeah.
And seeing that it wasn't so bad or actually had fun.
Yeah.
And it's taking control of our mind that says, no, you're not, or you need this because you don't.
Yeah.
Now, in saying that, so a lot of it is around, for us to make that decision, it's around limiting beliefs that we have. Yeah. So as we mentioned, I needed to relax, or I can't have fun. What other limiting beliefs do you think are there that people need to change? Or, how do we go about changing those beliefs?
Yeah. Absolutely. I do a lot of work on personally on myself, like, my affirmations. And I know I've heard this said loads, but like the words we speak to ourselves become the home that we live in, right? So we're making sure that the home that we live in is beautiful. So when I gave up alcohol, I did a huge amount of loving kindness meditations, right? big fan of the old Buddhists, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, okay, so what am I feeling here? Am I feeling fear? And so what do we then counteract all of those feelings with? It's also a journey of emotional literacy. So like, what am I feeling inside? You know, am I angry? Am I frustrated? All of these kind of things. And, you know, where did these things, so I had an affirmation track, which was really nasty. And I kept saying the same thing over and over to myself. One of them was that I was lazy, and I kept that for a very, very long time. There is not a lazy bone in my body, right? But because maybe I'd heard it somewhere along the way, I kept playing it and playing it and playing it. So again, self-awareness, when we look, what am I saying to myself? So what are my beliefs, right? Do I think that sober people are boring? Do I think that I need to have alcohol to have fun? Do I think that it's really glamorous? Do I think that, why is everybody else able to drink and not me? You know, there's a huge grieving part in this as well. And I suppose we're at a stage in our lives, and I assume that, you know, maybe your listeners are at a similar stage to me, but we have to let go of stuff. We're not 20 anymore, but there's gorgeous value in experience and, you know, having experienced a lot of life, that you now have knowledge, and like there's a comfort in a slower pace. And, you know, my own mom used to say to me when I was growing up, content, Olivia, that's all you really need. And I'd be like, ugh. Like, how horrific. And now I'm going back to her saying, you were dead right, mommy. Contentness is lovely. You know,
Yeah. Well, my
peace.
mum was the opposite. She'd say, how are you? And I'd say, grand. Yeah, she hated that word grand, you know, because we needed to strive for better than grand. So, which is what you actually said earlier, though, which is, you know, meh, okay, I'm just living. No, we have short lives. We need to strive for excitement, for achievement, for, you know, happiness is there for us all to take. And the question is that people have to ask themselves is, am I achieving it like this?
Yeah.
Or am I spending too many days feeling regret, feeling disappointment in myself? Then we need to, you know, look at ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
And make different choices.
Yeah.
So tell me this in terms of people who are sober curious right now. So, you know, we've said a lot. There's a lot that people can do, change. Where should they start right at this moment?
Pen, August, paper. And start writing stuff out, right? So what does alcohol give you? What does it take away? Right? The pros and cons, right? So if one side of the list is bigger than the other, that's a little note to self. Okay. So if it's causing a lot more harm, let's say, than it is good, right? Okay. So that's an indicator. There's so much, there's podcasts like my own, there's so many of them. Obviously have a listen to them. Quitlet. There are some fabulous books. Two of my favorite both are called Drink. One is by Professor David Nutt, and the other is by Ann Johnston. Fabulous books, very easy to read. You will expand your mind. Knowledge is power, right? So it's about getting as much knowledge into you as possible. There's so many sober curious Instagram accounts, apps. You can track your days. I would say, and a lot of the research shows that give yourself, well, it's enough to see change, which is 100 days. So like 100 days from now, when is that? You know, take it out, look at it on the calendar, and then give yourself the best opportunity to succeed, you know, plan ahead. If you have a hen, make sure, look at the menu before you go, look at for alcohol-free options. Like there's lots and lots that people can do. And again, what I said earlier, alcohol-free living is best understood in its practice. You can't theorize what it might feel like. You have to experience it. So set a date, say, I'm doing a challenge. This dose on a podcast told me that it's the best thing I'll ever do, you know, but like believe in yourself as well, you know, and it's the conversation around alcohol has changed so much over the last 10 years, and certainly over the last 7 since I've given up. You know, younger people are drinking less. There's a lot more
Yeah,
alcohol-free
definitely.
options. There's a huge amount of research coming out. Canada have changed their guidelines. We're Ireland, we're putting warning labels on bottles from next year onwards. You know, so get educated and do so. Once you have that education, right, you can make up that make up your own mind, make that decision for yourself based on how it's making you feel. If it's making you feel amazing, off you go. If it's making you feel lethargic and, you know, dulled, drained, misaligned, stuck, whatever, then what you need to do is just have a think about it, do the 100 days, off you go.
Yeah, experience it. But you say preparation. So helping you, sorry, would it help you like to visualize, let's say I'm going away for the weekend, and create a lovely positive visualization of how that weekend is going to go? But your mindset needs to be aligned with that. So when you have a negative thought, replace it with some of your lovely affirmations. Would you remind us of some of those lovely affirmations that
Oh,
you?
so, well, mine, the one I'm flat out saying to myself,
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
it in my room, I have it down in the kitchen, and every time I see it, I'm going to look at it now. So I get more of what I am. So bliss, abundance, freedom, joy, connection, peace, love, well-being, health, and beauty. So that's what I'm looking to attract more into my life. And how I believe, having read extensively around this, how I believe I get that is by being it. So that's what I want to be. I want to be
Beautiful.
kind, compassionate, articulate, joyful, blissful, positive, optimistic, abundant, all of those gorgeous things. Gone is the regretful, you know, girl who had so much fear and grief and a lot of rage as well. I had to work to God, my poor therapist has earned her money over the last few years. But like, it's about becoming this gorgeous version of ourselves that we're happy and joyful. And, you know, because, you know, little Olivia is in here as well. I've done a lot
Yeah,
of work on that too, you
yeah.
know, the inner child work as well. And, you know, we're giving ourselves the best opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. And whether you're listening to this podcast or watching it, I'm sure you can hear in Olivia's voice that beauty and high vibration and bliss. So you really are living what you're talking about. Actually, I'm going to ask you to send me your affirmation, and we'll put it in the show notes if
Gorgeous.
you're willing to share.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it sounds fabulous. So one of the things you do, Olivia, is help people take a break.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody wanted to work with you, do they have to be committed to giving up alcohol forever?
Oh,
Or
no, not forever, but certainly for a time.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah,
again, they have to experience. So what I would say to most people, well, every person who comes knocking on my virtual door, it's a case of, right, let's do 100 days. So I'll say, right, 100 days from today is this, and let's get a plan in place. What do you have coming up? What are your triggers? You know, what have you learned about yourself and why you drink? Is it response to a stressor? Is it a stressful job? Is it for connection? Is it for connection with yourself? Is it loneliness, boredom, whatever it is? So we'll definitely make a plan, and then we'll see how we go. So I do a group mentoring program. I do one a month. So people come into a group. There's gorgeous peer support, lots of accountability. There's lots of connection, beautiful resources. I teach a bit on that, but it's all about untangling from beliefs, attitudes, and moving forward and stepping into that new version of ourselves as well.
brilliant. Sounds amazing. And that support, sometimes people are afraid to come into group.
Yeah.
I've seen that myself where people, they think they want one-to-one. But over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of group coaching. And what's most powerful in that is the sustained success that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Because we have that layered learning of seeing other people, recognizing our own problems in other people, knowing we're not alone. It really is powerful. Are you
Yeah.
seeing that? Yeah.
Oh, unbelievably. Right. And I suppose with alcohol, it's a tiny bit different
Yeah.
because it's very shame orientated, and there's a lot of stigma. So
Right.
people, no matter what their pattern of drinking is like, they still feel that they're the only one. And admitting to having a problem, like, so I use the language of alcohol caused problems in my life, therefore it was a problem. Right. So, and you know, it was, there's no denying that it wasn't, because it produced all these inner problems within me. Right. So coming into a group, and like, I have a lot of really successful women who, you know, who want to, well, they're assured of confidentiality, but they kind of want to stay hidden, because admitting to this is a big thing as well. You know, and it's deep and
Imagine.
it's
Yeah.
dark and it's stigmatized, but we try and keep it light, you know, and future focused, that it will be the greatest thing you'll ever do. And again, the tools, the strategies, all the support, and what I notice is so beautiful. So, you know, at the minute, a lot of the clients are, and the people on the group mentoring courses are going on holidays. So they will keep us updated and go, oh, look at this beer, I got this in Spain, or I said this to the waiter, and guess what? Nobody cares. And, you know, by their bringing their experience to group as well, they'd say, oh, I got caught out on this situation and I didn't know how to handle it, but then I remembered what you did, you
Brilliant.
know,
Yeah.
Mary. And, you know, and then Mary goes, oh, great, I'm helping. So we're all helping each other to live our best lives, because we're all gorgeous and people just want the best for themselves, you know, and it's removing the stigma and the shame.
Yeah. But one of the things I would say that hold people back is their lack of belief in being able to follow through.
Yeah.
You know, so what do you say to those people who, you know, might be interested in doing this, but like 100 days, that's a long time, and I probably won't succeed.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those
Tweak your
people?
little mindset. But when you, like, I suppose when you look at it, alcohol makes us mistrust ourselves. Okay. So it will dampen our integrity. So when you say you'll do something, sometimes you don't. So you have this unbelievable mistrust within yourself. Okay. So again, we need to tweak that mindset. Absolutely, you can do it. You have full support here. Like, there has never really been a better time. So what I say is similar to what a woman in Australia or America will say, because again, like that, the human experience is so universal. But, and you know, if I can do it, you can do it. But that's so true. You know, when somebody's identity, my identity was so built around alcohol, from, I'd say, the age 15, 16, I had great crack with it. You know, I really enjoyed it. It was very much part of my identity until it wasn't. And it's about recognizing that within yourself.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. You know, and it is true. I mean, I've been a coach for many, many years. And, you know, I've come across that from people so many times that they're just afraid to trust themselves, that they have failed so many times that they just don't believe they can do it. It's like the weight loss problem as well. How many diets have I tried and it never works? So, but I've never experienced anyone that has the real desire and is ready to commit that fails.
Yeah.
You know, once we have that desire and the support from somebody like you, who's been through it, who's also guided hundreds of people through it, and you know, if you follow the process, it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about having that belief in yourself. And a huge amount of it is readiness to change, you know, so you're ready for this change. And I can notice people, they say, you know, you notice the language they use, how involved they are, how vulnerable they are, and they're so eager to learn. You know, and it's so evident who, you know, is really ready for it. And a huge amount of people are. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know. And I suppose when you look at it, alcohol always ends up the same way. So it goes through our body generally the same way. So we could have given it 1,000 chances. So it will always be the same, but we need to be different then.
Yeah. Stop making the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Or stop doing the same things and expecting different results.
Exactly.
Olivia, what do you do when you have a bad day? So what are your high vibration habits?
Okay, so I love music. So I'm a true 1990s girl, and I still listen to the same rave. So I'll be like, Alexa, play Avicii, or Swedish House Mafia. So I get a lot of energy from music.
Music,
I get a
brilliant.
lot of energy from laughing. So I happen to be married to a very, very funny man, and we
Oh,
laugh a lot, which is gorgeous. So I laugh, I dance, I listen to music, I exercise as well. So I know, and I know if I'm, and I obviously I get in low moods, but I know, having had enough experience, that it
yeah,
will pass, that it
yeah,
might end up a day, but I know I'll be back to normal
yeah.
tomorrow. Plus, I have a lot of affirmations that I say to myself. And again, the one was, I get more of what I am, but it's this or something better. You know, the
Lovely,
best is yet to
lovely.
come. Of course
Yeah,
it is. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be here, you know?
yeah, yeah. But that shift is sometimes with music or with an affirmation when you just need to shift your state.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
brilliant. And joy. I mean, it's probably a silly question because it seems like there's a lot of joy in your life.
It's a bit.
What are you getting joy from at the moment?
So I'm doing a lot of walking at the minute, and you know I would have had a bad relationship with walking for a long time. So I've set a goal to do at least 10,000 steps a day, and I'm getting so much joy. My local park, and I never gave it credit, right? So I'm spending a lot of mornings there, and it is just exceptional. Birds, getting so much enjoyment out of birds at the minute. I know it's so simple, right? But ducks, have you seen how ducks sleep? Oh my God, they're so cute.
I was with you on the birds, but when, with the ducks now I'm
Ducks, dogs hanging out of windows. Very
yeah,
simple things, but
yeah,
very joyful things. Because it's not you know, I'm not going to be J-Lo, Ciara. I'm not going to have a private jet. I don't want one, right? But I don't, I always thought when I was younger, my life would be massive. And the things that bring joy are like, you know, amazing cars and, oh, but it's not. It's
yeah,
smiles,
yeah,
it's joy, it's having fun with people, you know, it's ducks sleeping, you know, it's all of those. It's very, very ordinary. And if we can see the joy in the ordinary, then, you know, our
yeah,
lives aren't meaningless. They're deeply,
absolutely.
richly meaningful.
About 10 years ago, my husband bought me a little book on garden birds, and I didn't pay too much attention to it. I did like the idea, but I didn't give it time. And I remember my eldest son saying, you're a bit young for that yet now, aren't you?" But the most joy I'm getting from is the Merlin app. Have you come across that?
No, I have not.
Oh my gosh. Merlin, download it. You can, it records bird song or it'll tell you what bird's singing. So I'm very fortunate in where I live. There's woods beside my house and there are just so many birds in my garden. And you'll have this list of bird song and I still can't recognize it now without the app, but that sparks joy. It really, really does. As you said, it's simple, simple things. If we connect with them fully and if we're fully present, there's a lot of joy in that.
Absolutely. And joy is such, and it's such a mood shifter as well, you know, like, and again, so when we look at, so, you know, I said earlier, when we take alcohol out, we have to put loads of things in. So one of the things that we do is, well, what gave you joy when you were 12 or 13 or 15 or whatever? And we go back to basics because we knew more then before the world conditioned us to, you know, want J-Lo's life or private jets or whatever. But like, I don't know. Most people, I
And
think, are conditioned.
Instagram told us that's what was going to make us happy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But maybe it's knitting. You know, maybe it's
definitely knitting.
definitely knitting. You know, or maybe it's whatever. It's cooking. It's drawing. It's meditating. Like I know, when I was a kid, I'm from the country, like literally a field, and I used to go up into our field at the back and literally, and people would say, where are you going? And I was like, I'm going to do my life's work. All I wanted was inner peace. That's all was
Wow.
my biggest goal in life, was to achieve inner peace.
Wow, that's powerful. And you have.
To a certain extent, I'm not fully there, but every day, you know, if you're not winning, you're learning. There's no failing. And it's all about just experiencing life. And actually, probably one of the greatest things that has me like unbearably positive is that even in an adverse situation, you know, I will always say, what is this here to teach me? So, you know, what is it? What is this devastation? Or, you know, I'm not without lots of challenges, because I have had lots of challenge, but what is it here to teach me? Okay, maybe it's that, maybe it's that, maybe it's that, you know, and again, we're always learning.
There's a lot of wisdom there, Olivia. And you definitely weren't finding inner peace sitting at the bar.
Absolutely not. I thought I was. But look, aren't I a lot more? And you know, you'll find that with the sober community again. So all the people on Instagram and I've met nothing but gorgeous, beautiful, connected, compassionate people who give off their time. And, you know, a lot of them are highly sensitive. A lot of them have ADHD brains. A lot of them are empaths, but they're so giving, because alcohol has brought us to places where we definitely did not want to go to.
Yeah, and the removal of it has created space to find so much more joy, happiness, and experience in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So these conversations are getting longer. We're going to have to wrap it up.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing all of your wisdom and experience with us. And thank you to everybody listening in. Wishing you all a wonderful inner day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ciara.
So I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you are sober curious, make sure that you check Olivia out. The links to her website and social media are below. And she also does monthly group mentoring. So if you want to find out more about that, make sure you drop her a DM or just get in touch with her. She is such a wonderful, warm human being. She will definitely help you on your path to getting sober. As always, remember this podcast is accompanied by a quiz, the High Vibration Reset Quiz. And that's there to help you to identify what's really blocking your success. It could be overthinking, overworking. Maybe it's feeling undervalued, or maybe you are a bit misaligned in your direction. So don't forget to take the quiz. Link is below. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing in this podcast and you're interested in working more seriously on creating that high vibrational state, I'm launching a program in the coming months to support women to step into high vibration. My goal is to create more high vibration leaders. And high vibration is about creating that coherent mindset and emotional state so that we can lead ourselves and others in a much more positive way. Living in high vibration is going to help you to create a state of flow. So check out the link below and make sure you get on the wait list to be the first to know when we go live. And if you want to find out more about working with me in general, or your company is looking for a motivational speaker, you can find out more details on my website of how to work with me, or pop us an email or a DM. So thanks again for tuning in, and make sure you're following the podcast so that you don't miss the next episode. Have a beautiful inner day, and thank you for tuning in.